IIM interviews can be tough, especially if you have not enrolled in any of the traditional coaching, then it can become tougher. On top of that, if you come from a non-English medium schooling background, it sounds really intimidating. But don't worry. Today, let me share my journey of how I converted my very first IIM interview call without taking help from any of the traditional coaching centers, and how, standing in 2025, you can do it too. So let's jump in. Before we proceed, let me give you guys a little bit of details about my background. So I graduated from NIT Durgapur in 2018, but before my graduation, I studied in Bengali medium schools my whole life, which meant English fluency was a real challenge for me. However, after my graduation, I worked as a data analyst for quite some time, which shaped me really well in sounding confident in front of the interviewers. So in the next part of the video, let me cover which type of questions were asked to me and how did I manage to answer those. So I appeared for CAT 2023 examination without much preparation, but managed to get calls from IIM Bangalore and IIM Lucknow. So today I will share about my IIM Lucknow interview experience. Usually all the IIM interviews happen in tier 1 cities and you can choose from the options. I chose Bangalore as I have been living in Bangalore for quite some time, and my interview was scheduled in one of the ITC hotels in Richmond Circle. My interview was in morning slot, so I reached there somewhere by 7:30 in the morning. So after reaching there, the first thing that happened was the admin panels of IIM Lucknow were actually checking and verifying our documents and identification proofs. So I would request all of you to bring every identification proof and certification that you have with yourself so that in the last minute you don't have to worry about these things and you can solely focus on the what and PI round. So after that, we actually checked our CAT registration numbers against the panel we were scheduled to interview with, and we proceeded toward that particular panel interview room. So for our panel, we had roughly about 10 candidates at a time, and we all entered the room simultaneously. We were given a single page and a particular topic to write about in 15 to 20 minutes of time, and we completed that, and afterwards we were asked to wait outside the room and we were called one by one. So for the what round or the writing ability test round, I would ask you guys to focus more on topics like Indian economy and current affairs, etc. For these things, you can actually refer to big newspapers like The Hindu, The Statesman, Times of India, or for financial news, you can actually refer to Economic Times, etc. Now, after our what round was done, we were actually asked to wait outside in line. So after my turn came in, I entered the interview room and asked both the interviewers if I may take a seat. After I sat, the very first question that came to me is, what will you do if you are made the Chief Minister of Bengal tomorrow? Now, although startling, it wasn't a very unfamiliar question to me because I was raised in Bengal. So I focused on 3 key issues that I faced firsthand. First of all, education. The government Bengali medium schools are lacking very much in terms of the syllabus and extracurricular activities when compared to private schools, because we invest in the child's education should be primary focus. Second point was healthcare. I still see a lot of Bengalis come to Vellore in Tamil Nadu for affordable healthcare. Now, affordable healthcare shouldn't be very far away. So health was my second topic. And the third point that I chose was the lack of industrialization. Now, this is a point we all are aware of, less or more. So we all know how the IT industrialization actually started in Bengal long time back, but it fell behind, couldn't keep up pace with the way Bangalore, Hyderabad and other cities became very developed. These are the 3 major areas I told that I would focus on based on the ROI, because definitely education, healthcare and industrialization should be our focus in terms of thinking about the growth of the state in upcoming days. Both the interviewers seemed happy with the answer and they immediately moved on to the second question. The second question was, what are some of the major economic problems India is facing today? So I knew this was a question about my general awareness and my future thinking capabilities. I focused on how inflation, heavy taxation, and unemployment rate is actually affecting the main talent pool of India, and majority of the same is settling abroad. How we can mitigate the same and focus on more job creation, industrialization, and infrastructure. So I painted a whole picture in terms of what I faced firsthand. And again, from the reaction of the interviewers, it felt like I gave a good answer. Now, the third question was directly shifted towards why I wanted to do an MBA. Now, this is a very, very important question for anyone preparing for MBA or want to join IIMs. I would definitely ask you guys to prepare your own version of why you want to do an MBA. Why, for me, I told that being in the data analytics industry for a long time, specifically catering towards the marketing business, I was more curious to know about marketing as a whole, and the experience always cannot teach you all the things. For that, you need to have a traditional studying background as well, where I think MBA fits properly with my long-term career growth aspirations. So after this question, I didn't receive much of a reaction from the interviewers, and they immediately switched gears into asking me some of the work-related questions. So next questions were more towards my area of work, related to, let's say, some of the statistical inferences, the tools and terminologies that we use, the definitions, some relevant questions of real-world problems, etc. The next question was, what is your biggest strength? Now, this is also a tricky question, but I think this is also a very common question. So I would ask all of the candidates to prepare for your biggest strength or weaknesses, because the way you answer this question can become really handy. Now, for me, I focused on my greatest strength, which I thought was presentation. Now, coming from a non-English medium schooling background, presenting in English fluently in front of a fairly large crowd was not a piece of cake for me. But however, I overcame that challenge, and right now I can confidently say that storyboarding is one of the skills that I have developed myself, for which I have been appreciated across the board. So I focused on this, and I told how I overcame my challenges by continuous practice and perseverance, and the interviewers seemed fairly invested in my answer. After this, again, they went back to one of the question in terms of statistical analysis. One of the more common question was, what is the difference between bias and variance? And give me an example of how will you calculate this in terms of a real world problem. So I started talking about a customer churn problem and the model I developed in work, and they understood, and somewhat in the middle, they stopped me and passed a bowl full of candy for me to pick one from those. And I did that, thanked the interviewers, and went out of the room. So this interview went really smooth for me. This wasn't a disaster, and I fared really well. Now in the end, when the results came out, I was lucky to find myself in the shortlisted candidates for IIM Lucknow PGP. However, your interview experience can vary a lot based on the panel you are interviewing with. So I will give you some tips which you can definitely follow to make yourself at ease while entering the interview room. So the very first tip that I'll give you is to work on your communication skills. So communication skills, or let's say effective communication skills, can be developed if you are really confident in what you have done so far. So let's say if you are a fresh graduate, I would ask you to focus on some of your projects or internships or some of the subjects which you understood really well, to focus more on, so that anytime the interview is going in a different direction, you can somehow bring the interviewers back into your comfortable area. It's all about convincing the interviewers that you are confident in your specific area. Now, as for the working professionals, I would ask you to be really confident and know everything about the projects you have worked on or the specific areas that you have worked on. If you don't know the area, or if you are not confident about the area that you are working on, it can become a red flag. So definitely become confident in what you do, and it automatically builds up your communication skills. So if you are someone who have not enrolled into a coaching center, or let's say you do not have a partner to practice your communicational skills with, then I would highly encourage you to practice with the help of the new AI tools like ChatGPT or something similar, and you can actually practice your conversational skills with the AI agents. Now, the second piece I would highly advise for you to focus on is why you want to do an MBA. You shouldn't say that, okay, I want to earn a lot of money, that's why I want to do an MBA. That might be true, but you should always focus on the skills that you'll be learning after you are done with your MBA. What is the one reason for which you wanted to do an MBA? For me, I knew that I have worked in the data analytics industry, but however, I did not have a traditional guidance or any courses for me to know everything about marketing. And I was really interested in knowing about the inception of marketing till the modern technology marketing teams are using. So that was a good reason for me to understand that not everything can be learned from experience. We sometimes would need guided trainings as well, and that's why I wanted to do an MBA. So your answer should also fairly revolve around why you wanted to do an MBA. Have you seen someone close to you doing an MBA and that has inspired you? Or what is your background? And where does MBA fit in along your long-term career aspects? Now the third point would be stay updated about current affairs. Now it's quite difficult to know everything that's going on around the world, but I would highly request you at least know what is happening around the country. It can be economy, it can be some current affairs, or some sporting events or entertaining events or some business events that are going around the country. You should be knowing about those. If not everything in detail, at least you should be knowing the basics. So that's what is the expectations. I would say again, you can leverage some ChatGPT or similar tools standing in 2025 to know about those so that it can prep you in limited time about the same. Now, the fourth point I would ask you guys to focus on is your ability to think structurally. Now, this is where my experience as a data analyst came in really handy, since I work day in, day out, structuring my analysis around why this problem is being solved in the first place, what am I going to gain out of it, and what will be the outcomes or the impact of the same. This structural approach of solving my problems in a day-to-day life actually helped me immensely in structuring my answers in front of the interviewers as well. But let's say if you're someone who's a fresh graduate and have not have work experience with you, I would ask yourself to answer every question by breaking those down into some of the WH questions. So let's say if you are asked a question, first try to understand why the interviewer is asking you this question. What do they want to understand from this question? So if it is all about awareness and general perception, don't be too afraid to state your opinion, whatever it might be. I would say always do not focus towards a very strong opinion of being extremely positive or extremely negative about something, but rather try to keep your opinion somewhere in the neutral ground. And that's what the interviewers would also like to know from you. So thinking structurally before answering anything is definitely very crucial. Now comes the last, but definitely not the least point. Be honest with your answers. IIM interviews are less about accurate answers, but more about your ability to not panic in a stressful interview scenario and your ability to think structurally before answering any question. Here, if you don't know the answer to a particular question, do not be afraid of saying that you are not aware of it. Your ability to not waste your own as well as the interviewer's time is highly appreciated. It's the same if you're working in a corporate world as well. It's highly appreciated if you do not waste anyone's time, including your own. In case if you are confident that you are able to deduce the answer after some calculation steps, then kindly ask for some time from the interviewers and then calculate it. So always try to maintain a calm and composed nature, and before entering the interview room, always focus on the effort that you are able to put in rather than focusing on the outcomes. So this was all about my IIM Lucknow interview experience. Hope you learned something from it. I converted IIM Lucknow, but unfortunately didn't go in to join their PGP program for some personal reasons. However, I will also share my interview experience with IIM Bangalore in the upcoming video. If you found this particular video helpful, do not forget to let me know in the comments below. If you stayed till this far, please give the video a thumbs up and share with the people in need, and also subscribe to our channel. This will mean a lot to us. So finally, again, I will reiterate, do not worry too much. Prepare well and prepare smartly, and be confident in what you have worked so far. It's completely fine to not know everything, but again, your ability to hold yourself together in the interview room should work wonders for you. So that was all for today, and we'll meet you in the next one. Till then, take care.